Hello everyone. We're really happy to be here. Really delighted to join you for another webinar. Today we're going to be talking about cultivating an inclusive organizational culture and how executive coaching can lead the way. It's always great to know who's here, and LinkedIn is really strange in that sometimes what it does is it just says unknown user. It doesn't tell us who's actually taking part in this webinar, in this LinkedIn Live. So do say hello in the chat. Do let us know who you are, where you are, what your interest is in joining this webinar today, because we always love to know who's here. And I know my colleague Tanya is probably typing in the chat that you should feel free to say hi and let us know where in the world that you're logging in from. For those who don't know me, I am an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. Together with my team, we deliver impactful development to support those from underrepresented groups to progress in the workplace, as well as supporting all leaders to make inclusion happen. My latest and recently award-winning practical and empowering book is Equality versus Equity: Tackling Issues of Race in the Workplace. And I'm just so happy to be here. Those of you who registered via Eventbrite would have seen that your donations go to a social enterprise called Rocking Your Teens. And Rocking Your Teens has an event coming up in November, a boys' conference to celebrate International Men's Day. So any donations you have made will go to making that a success, and also future events that Rocking Your Teens run, such as girls empowerment conferences, and also their Empowering You program as well. So again, my colleague Tanya, who's part of the team, will be giving you the URL for Rocking Your Teens if you want to find out more about it, how to get involved, how to support. Perhaps your organization wants to support it in the future. So another welcome. And just if anyone's having trouble joining us, what you need to do is sort of refresh your screen. Sometimes it still says that you're waiting, and you might need to refresh your screen. And I'm sure Tanya will put that message in the chat as well. So what are we talking about today? Well, despite your best efforts, building a truly inclusive culture can remain challenging. It's frustrating when progress feels slow or even non-existent. And that's why we're here today, to introduce you to a powerful tool that can accelerate your journey towards inclusivity. What is it? Well, it's executive coaching. In this webinar, we'll uncover how coaching can be a game changer, empowering leaders to create meaningful cultural change. We'll explore 4 areas: overcoming the fear of making a mistake, aligning leadership with values, fostering a culture of continuous learning, and also how do you measure and sustain progress. By the end of this session, I'm really hoping you're going to gain some actionable strategies to leverage the untapped potential of executive coaching in your organization in order to make sure everyone feels valued and empowered. This isn't just about knowledge, it's about equipping you to make a real difference. So I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy this session. And this is an interactive session. What we want you to do is pose questions, pose thoughts, any materials or articles, anything you want to in the chat, so that we can all learn together and from each other. And a lot of the wisdom is going to come from our executive coaches here, Sassy, Sadia, and Yvonne, who are all listed in the Diverse Executive Coach Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from the global majority or ethnically diverse backgrounds, might be the language you prefer to use. And together, we're going to discuss, as I've said, cultivating an inclusive organizational culture, how executive coaching can lead the way. In terms of our diverse executive coach directory, again, my colleague Tanya is going to either put the link or the handle for it in the chat. We have a very vibrant LinkedIn group, a LinkedIn page, I should say, that's really grown from strength to strength. So do look out for it and do join us. The format of this session is that Sassy, Sadia, and Yvonne will briefly introduce themselves. I'll start off by asking them some questions, and then we'll open it up to you for your questions and reflections, and we'll keep an eye on the chat throughout. There is a hashtag for this event, and it's Coach for Inclusive Culture. So do feel free to take snippets of what we've said, take screen grabs of what we've said, and these amazing coaches, and talk about it, spread the word, so that everyone can benefit from the learning. So as I said, I'm going to start off with some introductions, and I'm going to start with you, Sadia.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. It's lovely to be here again. So I'm Sadia Salam. I'm an executive coach, an inclusion facilitator, and a recovering lawyer. And I think I graduated to where I am now because I love using everything I've learned as a certified coach, my 20 plus years in law, and really helping organizations to create that inclusive culture, which is key to retaining diverse talent. And for me, I love coaching diverse leaders, helping them lead in a way that works for them and their organization, and just seeing the success that flows from that. I'm Welsh, I'm Bangladeshi heritage, and I live in London with my husband, 2 children, my dad close by, and our much loved cockapoo.
Yvonne, please do introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm Yvonne Akimoden, and I'm an executive career coach. And my background is within the world of HR. So I've worked in senior HR roles across a number of different sectors and organizations. I came into the world of coaching about 5 years ago, and I've really not looked back. I love it. I love coaching. I love being able to help people unpack areas of concern. I especially enjoy working with people from global ethnic minority backgrounds who might be struggling within their organizations and are looking to really feel that their voice is being heard and understood by those around them. So that's something that I really enjoy. I find that really rewarding, and it's great to see people grow and develop from the coaching sessions. So I live in Kent. I used to be a Londoner, but I live in Kent, and I am also a very avid boxer size fanatic. So I do a bit of that on the side. So that's something interesting about me.
Fantastic, thank you. Good, keeping fit. And Sassy.
Hi, really lovely to meet everybody today. My name is Sassy Panchal, and I'm an executive leadership coach, and I coach particularly diverse future leaders from different ethnic minorities and diverse cultural backgrounds. I've been a coach for almost 15 years and started that journey off as a corporate coach in the leadership sphere as well, and realized actually it was a passion and something that I thought, hey, this makes a difference, not only to me as being a leader in the organization at that point, but also to teams as well within organizations. I decided to take the leap and become a leadership coach independently. Since then, I absolutely love what I do, being able to help coachees that are from different ethnic minorities to appreciate more about their identity and how that shows up in the roles and whether that's at home or in the organizations, and be able to find their authentic voice, and from that authentic voice be able to lead with power, presence, and impact. I've worked in a number of different organizations, and I feel that actually it's working at the individual level that creates great organizational impact. So I'll always continue to do what I'm doing because it's making a difference and it's really helping individuals. What I do outside of work, I also like going to the gym and Pilates and yoga and traveling. And recently, my daughter got married, and it was a fusion wedding with 2 different cultures coming together. So immensely proud moment there as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. As you can see, we have coaches here with a wealth of experience. They bring so much to this conversation and to the clients that they serve. So I want to jump to our first question. Beyond the basics of affinity groups, or some call them employee resource groups and awareness days, what are some specific coaching strategies that can help executives break through resistance and create real behavioral shifts towards a more inclusive culture? So we're thinking about coaching strategies, we're thinking about breaking through difficulty when people don't quite get it or aren't quite on board. And I'm going to start with you, Yvonne. What do you think?
So I think one of the most powerful ways of helping people to really get a better understanding of, as a leader, of what it is to work with a group of people from different backgrounds is to start by working alongside them. So that could be some form of shadowing. That could also be really talking with individuals, learning from them about their own lived experiences, to help them really get under the skin of how people from different backgrounds think, work, what's important to them. And I think part of the coaching element within that is to then reflect that back during the coaching sessions, to really pick on what they've learned and to help them plan out what they need to do next in order to be a much more effective leader when working with a diverse group of people within their organization.
Great. Some instantly great top tips there. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Sassy, what would you add?
I'd add to that that behavioural change and shifts take such a long time to create, whether it's individual or organisationally. What coaching offers is the ability to look at an individual level through powerful questioning, really interrogating what's under the surface. Is it identity issues? Is it values? Is there something in the organisation that you feel strongly about that you really want to change? And through that powerful questioning, it enables an individual to really be present with what's going on for them in a situation, looking at some obstacles that they may not be conscious of and bringing that into the conscious awareness through deeper questioning to resolve what could they do differently to enable some of that behavioural change to start at the level of self within a team and then a broader impact over an organisation.
I think you also, when we discussed before, you were talking a bit about the concept of reverse or reciprocal mentoring.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for reminding me that. Once you've built rapport and you have the ability to converse with somebody who's worked in a different part of the organisation, maybe, who is different, there's a difference in age, it's really powerful because it builds on an understanding of things that you may not know about. For example, in previous corporate role, taking advantage of the reverse mentoring was the ability to just ask some really simple questions that people felt a little bit awkward to ask in a larger environment. And by understanding the differences, that dialogue that occurs between somebody who's from a very senior part of the organization, somebody who's just new in, creates a bit of a cultural shift in understanding. It kind of makes some of our beliefs that we had or behaviors and mindset shift a little bit as well through curiosity.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Sadia, what would you add?
I'd probably add, on building on that powerful questioning, which is really needed, is it's creating that safe, non-judgmental space. So no judgment, a really safe space where the executive can open up about whatever they can open up about, and supporting them to come up with those answers through the powerful questioning that Sassy mentioned, through holding up that mirror that Yvonne mentioned. Because one example that's come up recently is often promotions, sponsorship. You go to the senior executives asking them to sponsor you, asking them to help you with promotion. And sometimes those executives feel, and one said to me, but I'm really worried about her because she's just not confident in front of clients. And we were able to unpack that. Number one, he was able to tell me the reason why he wasn't able to support this person as a sponsor. And number two, we were able to work through, using powerful questioning that Sassy mentioned, what's behind someone not being confident in front of clients. Who else has given that feedback? What else could it be? What could he do to support that? And having those questions helps the resistance, because until then he was resisting being a sponsor, resisting promotion of a diverse talent because of that one thing. We were able to work through that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. There's a lot already been said, but I'm hoping you're hearing that this sense of sharing your own lived experience, walking in the shoes of someone else, understanding a little bit more about their experience. Coaching can help you do that. Actually asking great questions and putting people together who perhaps would not normally give advice to the other person through reciprocal mentoring or reverse mentoring. And also this concept of actually creating a safe space and really digging, unpacking what people are saying and positively challenge. And I actually think that's one of the real strengths of coaching, in that we offer a lot of supportive challenge, things that perhaps couldn't be said or you don't get to the heart of in many other conversations, you can get to in the coaching conversation. So I have a second question for you. How can coaching help executives become more aware of their own biases? This is a great question, because we talk about unconscious bias. And if it's unconscious, we can't do anything about it. We all have these unconscious biases. We all have blind spots. So how can they become more aware of them? So they're not unconscious anymore. They're conscious. They consciously know what they are, and then actively work to overcome them in their leadership style and their decision making. And I'm going to start with Sassy this time.
I think that's a really powerful question. And I think what happens in coaching sessions to allow some of that, the ability to raise what a coach is hearing, because one of the key skills that we have, apart from the powerful question, is listening in to what's not being said or what is inferred through body language or tone of voice. For example, I had a client who is a young, very young leader in an organization leading a much more mature team. And she was explaining about a certain situation that was impacting her leadership. And as she was talking, I was very cognizant of the fact that she was speaking about how it made her feel uncomfortable, but she was smiling all the time as she was telling this story, as this narrative was evolving. So we questioned what was behind that. And by me mirroring what I was seeing and hearing, what we were able to uncover was a large part of their identity had come from their upbringing, which was about speaking softly, maybe not being as confrontational. And yet that was impacting how she was able to lead the team of mature individuals, but also impacted her leadership style. So as we started to unpack this through this mirroring, through this understanding of what's congruent with them and their identity, uncoupling a little bit of the cultural aspect as well, so that they could show up in a much more present way, leading with that power, leading with impact, not just their words, but their behaviors being congruent, and also body language as well.
I love that. It's a really good piece of learning for any leader, manager, person listening. Just because someone's smiling doesn't mean that they're in agreement, doesn't mean it works for them. Don't misinterpret, dig a bit deeper, understand a bit more. But also sometimes people don't realize their own, what they're projecting, and how that's been interpreted by others as well. So that's such a great takeaway. Thank you. Yvonne.
Thank you. I think just to follow up again on getting people to see things from other people's point of view, I think using tools like 360 feedback can be quite a powerful tool that can help to really get behind those blind spots, because we all have them. And as Jenny, as you mentioned earlier, the irony is you don't know what you don't know. So the 360 is a really great tool that certainly can help people to really reflect back or hear from others in a sort of a safe space. I think what I would caution when people are using 360 is that it really needs to be done within the right context, so that people don't fear it, but see it as a really valuable leadership and coaching tool, because it will, if it is done in an open and engaging way, people will embrace it and will use it. And I know that I've worked with organizations and with leaders where the 360 has really helped them see things that they otherwise wouldn't have picked up. So I think being able to pick up on some of the areas, especially if you have within your 360 questions that focus around diversity, to get a perception from people, because a lot of leaders will say, well, I don't believe that I have any biases at all. I treat everyone the same, because they genuinely believe that. And so having that 360 can really help them see how things reflect back to them, how others might perceive certain behaviors or things, and it can then be part of an ongoing coaching conversation that is had to help them be even better leaders.
I really appreciate the care you've put into not just saying do a 360, but helping people to think about what they need around that. Because there are some people who now have been scarred by the 360 process, and they were immediately saying, oh, no. And the fact that you talked about the care in which you need to really consider how you deliver it, the context around it, the giving feedback carefully, helping the person to interpret it, making sure you've got the right questions. It's all really key. And I think that's very important. You know, when you deal with great coaches like you're finding here, they don't just jump in and parachute in and try and sort everything out. They aim to understand context. They want to make sure that any interventions that they put in place are going to actually help and not cause more problems. You know, these things are not to be jumped into, but to be carefully considered and thoughtfully put in place. So I really appreciate that point, Yvonne. Thank you so much. And Sadia, what would you add?
Well, an example is over the summer, the race riots. Lots of executives needed coaching on how to deal with that, to help them. So they needed that safe space to be able to talk about how they were feeling. And I had one executive that I was coaching, and his first comment was he feels really hurt because he didn't respond, didn't send an email quickly enough in the view of many employees. And he felt hurt about that they were hurt that he hadn't responded. So in that coaching session, we were unpacking, number one, why he didn't respond quickly or as quick as people wanted, what stopped him from doing that. And what stopped him actually was, could he use the phrase race riot? There was this discussion as well, protest, race riots. Am I causing more issues by using the phrase race riot? And we could unpack all those thoughts. They were his thoughts and they were holding him back. And also he was that, I want it to be a safe space at work. I don't want us to have these kinds of conversations. And we could unpack what that meant. Of course, those conversations were already happening, hence why people were hurt. And just being, as exactly as Yvonne said, jumping into other people's shoes. Okay, so if you were a brown employee, what would you be thinking right now? If you were a black employee, what would you be thinking right now? And being able to jump into other people's shoes in a safe space really helped him. And also he could practice what he was going to say. Practice or talk about the email he wanted to send and practice what he wanted to say. Coaching gives you that safe space to unpack what's holding you back, the hurt you're feeling, and also what you're going to do next, and practice what you're going to say.
Great points. And thank you for that very practical example of something that's happened very recently. And a question for everyone here who's listening and watching. How did your organization respond? If you're the leader, what did you say or do or not do because you felt either that it wasn't relevant or that you didn't know what to say? And how might you do something differently? And how might a coach help in the future as well? I just want to give a few shout outs. As I drop my phone. I could see that Janice is here, Joseph is here, Carol is here, Kathy is here. So I just want to acknowledge your presence and your contribution. And thank you so much for joining us. And the many others whose name I can't see because they haven't written in the chat. Just want to say thank you for joining us. Hope you're finding it useful. Do type in the chat and let us know what you're taking from the session so far. Do type your questions in the chat as well. We will have time for some questions and we really want to address things that really matter to you. So please do take the opportunity to do that. So another question for you is, in your experience, what are common challenges that organizations face in sustaining momentum for inclusive cultural change? And how can coaching help address these challenges at executive level? I do feel that currently people have felt like perhaps people have put the brakes on some of the efforts that have been put in around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And people want to sustain momentum. My fear is that if we take the foot off the accelerator, we're going to roll back even further than we were before, and then we'll be starting all over again. So starting to consider what some of those strategies are can be really, really helpful to sustain that momentum, particularly for executives. So I'm going to start with you actually this time, Sadia.
Thank you. So I think coaching is a great strategy, because coaching, whoever's having coaching, you're pressing the pause button. For that 60 minutes that you have with your coach, it's a pause button where you can breathe. In your busy day, you get challenged and questioned on different things. And when everybody's busy, inclusion just drops to the bottom of the list, because a lot of people see inclusion or any work in relation to inclusion as an add-on. So it's something on the to-do list rather than something that's in our behavior that we do every single day as a human being. And what I found really helpful for executives to really regain that is to look, coming back to Yvonne's, a really good organized 360 around this from the organization. I've done one recently, and in it you're talking about what they do well in respect of inclusion and DE&I, and what they need to do more of and less of. And when you look at those 360 degrees, you're able to show them, look at all the great things that you're doing, creating space, always asking people in a meeting to speak, giving everybody a voice, echoing the good points, having one-to-one coffees on one-year anniversaries with employees. All these small things that you can often do and think, oh, they're too small. It's just part of what I do every day. And yet, if you ask an employee, they're going to go, that's what makes me feel that I belong. That's what makes me feel that I can trust this organization and turn up as myself. You have to know the good things that you're doing and really know those are your superpowers and continue doing them. And yes, we can focus on one or two things that you're not doing that we can do, but it's really important when you're busy and everything else that all the good stuff that you're doing, you continue doing to increase, to make that inclusive culture. Don't forget that and just focus on the things that are not happening. And I don't think we spend enough time on our superpowers and the good stuff that we are doing.
Yeah, really, really great point. Thank you so much. And some really actionable things there, small things that you can do that can make a big difference. I'm going to go to you, Yvonne, next. What are your thoughts?
So I like the phrase superpower. I think that's great. Yeah, and I think to kind of build on that, I think a lot of organizations have values built into their mission and their overall goals as an organization. And usually within those values, a lot of organizations will have something that speaks to inclusion in whatever language they use. But like I've seen many organizations have that, and then what tends to happen is those values are then parked somewhere and people don't revisit them. And if you have within your values or your goals as a leader something that speaks to inclusivity, the way to keep that alive and to keep that momentum going is to have that built into your coaching sessions. So part of your discussions within those sessions is to ask the question, how did you live that value? What were the examples of things that you might have done that really demonstrate your inclusivity? Because if people have that at the forefront, it makes it much more likely that they will take those values and really kind of make sure that they really are living the values that they purport to have as an employer or as an organization. So I think it's really important that those things are built into everyday activities and discussions that people are having in the workplace.
Yeah, I think it's one of the key things that organizations are learning, that this is not an add-on. This should be embedded into the fabric of everything that's done. And when it is, that's when we're all working to the same agenda. We're all trying to achieve the same thing, and we make the biggest impact. So yeah, thank you. Sassy, what would you add to this?
What I'd add is resilience is a thing that gets knocked as well, and that's individual resilience, team resilience, organizational resilience, and also the energy that goes behind this, because creating inclusive cultures takes time, takes patience, it takes a lot of consistency around changing behavior. As we all know, changing behaviors takes time, and little by little that works. But what I find in coaching, when clients come into the coaching session and they're feeling this lack of energy, this lack of motivation, because I just feel that they're sometimes, all this change is happening, but nothing keeps getting embedded into the organization. And specifically, it's giving them the opportunity in that coaching session to look at their own selves, almost offering the balcony perspective. How are you behaving? How are you reacting or maybe responding in situations? Really kind of focusing that balcony on a lens of looking at your behaviors. And we'll go back and look at certain situations. How did it feel when you were delivering a facilitation of a ED&I workshop? How did it feel to get responses that for you felt actually quite personal? For example, hearing comments about diversity that feel a bit abrasive to you delivering that message as a leader. So it's about unpacking that, because that really does have an impact on an individual's resilience. And that resilience impacts themselves. You take it home, you take it into teams and organizations. And I think coaching really offers that safe space to look up at the balcony, look at what your behavior is. Can you change them slightly? But often to give you the opportunity to really be honest and say, I'm done with this work right now, and then to look at what could move you forward, or whether you just need a break from it for a while. And then what would you do to re-engage? Because resilience is the one thing I think we all struggle with at whatever life stages we're at. And it's the one thing about how I say to my daughter very often, you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on somebody else. And it's quite ironic that I used to say that to her when she was very young, and now she's cabin crew. So it works.
That's a subliminal message you gave there. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're getting really lovely feedback from everyone. Sanjeev's finding it really useful. We've got Dr. Tiro Mani, apologies if I pronounced your name incorrectly, enjoying the session. Carol saying it's well-needed discussion. Janet says it's really interesting points being discussed. And Kathy's happy to be here. So thank you all. And Sohini's really loving the insights from everyone as well. So great that what you're saying is really landing. It's really provoking thought and helping people to come away with some specific actions. So we have a point here that I just want to pick up that someone said. It must be hard having some of these conversations with senior leaders who really don't get it initially. How do you look after your own mental health and not just take things personally? And I know you've talked a bit about resilience, Sassy, but I just wonder from all of you, if you have any points about that, when it perhaps feels like, I'm saying it, it's not really landing, it's not making a difference.
I think the one thing I would just add on to that is that when it's taking a toll on your mental health, you need to first of all, take time out, speak to a coach or a mentor or somebody who can really help to unravel what it is. What specifically really touched a chord? What value did it impinge on? What does that mean for you and how you show up? Because often it's the ability to take a bit of a microscopic view and understand this is an individual that's being impacted. And mental health is really important to ensure that you kind of try and have those conversations sooner than later, rather than letting them build up and not take it as personal. Because sometimes on the other side of it, somebody could really not understand the situation, not read it well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, what do I own in this conversation? I don't own their outcome. So I don't own them getting it. All I own is how I show up and how I support. So I hold the mirror up. I will challenge in a positive way. I will give them a different view. I will do all the things that I know I can do and I can do well. I know what my superpowers are and I'll use them, but I'm not going to own their result for them. That's for them to own. I'll support them, but everybody has to own how they show up. Everybody has to own their own results and what they want to achieve. And that includes the person who doesn't get it. Maybe they will. Maybe it's a ripple effect. Maybe it'll take a bit longer. But they own that, not me.
And I think for the way that I look at it is very similar to what's already been said. But essentially, I think what I take from that, if somebody is really not owning that situation or not getting that there is a concern, is to try and initially I start from wanting to really understand it from their point of view, because we all have different perspectives, and what might be obvious to somebody in one part of the world might not be obvious to somebody else. So I think I start by trying to really kind of understand where they're coming from, asking the questions and asking the what if type of questions. What if you were in this person's shoes? What if? To try and really see if I can, through that, get them to really understand and understand what their concerns are as well, but to really understand also broadly how their behavior or lack of acceptance might be impacting others. But ultimately, I think, as Sadia just said, I think they have to own the outcome. And if they don't really own the outcome, I think where I would then step back. So I'm very much take the view that if it's putting me in a position where I feel I've done as much as I can, and this person really isn't owning this situation, I would then need to take care of myself by talking to people, colleagues, mentors, other coaches, to really make sure that I'm building my own resilience back, so that I'm really taking care of myself, and leaving that person to really kind of reflect, hopefully, on the discussions that we've had as part of the coaching or whatever setting we've had those conversations.
Thank you. I think one of the challenges that I've seen is that quite often the person who is trying to do the persuading and having these conversations is a person from a minoritized group themselves. And so people are coming to you, sharing their difficult experiences because you're a trusted person, and not remembering that it's triggering for you, that you might be going through or have gone through something similar. And so you're absorbing it all. And then having to be the corporate person who then has the conversation with others about something that is quite personal to you at the same time. And I think you're invested in the result because it matters to you. It matters to you personally. People who work in this space, it matters to you personally, usually, as well as professionally. And I think that's really draining, because it's triggering. It's hard to separate yourself from it. And I think that coaching, for resilience, for support, for safe space, for catharsis, just let me get this out because there's no other space for me to get it out, is key. We did produce a webinar on resilient skills for diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals, and it will be on the website. If anyone does want it after this session, let us know and we'll send you the link, because I think quite often it's that space, someone who really cares, really passionate, personally invested, and it's much harder then to walk away and to not care about the results in that sort of situation. And the self-care just becomes even more important, and the work on yourself and the support that's in place. So, for example, when people tell me that they're going to have some new chairs of employee resource groups, I always say, have they got a coach? They're having to have many more conversations with senior people in the organization. They're also having to deal with all of the projection of how everyone's feeling in their group and be that spokesperson as well. There's a lot that you might have to absorb. So coaching is a really good good tool in those sorts of situations? I think that's a really great question, actually, for us all to be thinking about. And also, if you're a leader who's not from a underrepresented group, start to remember the toll that this might be taking on people when they're trying to move inclusion forward. Just that extra bit of awareness as well. So thank you. Also here, Martha, you've been agreeing, I think, with many of the coaches here, agreeing with Sassy's point on pacing, Sadia's point as well on thinking about outcomes. So, what you're saying is landing. And I like this point. I can't see who made the point, but the question, if you were a Black or brown employee, what might you be feeling about the issue? So that ability to kind of step into someone's shoes. We can't do it exactly, can we? I can never know what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. But even that intention of trying to consider it, I think is helpful. So thank you. Thanks for all of your engagement, everyone. I have another question here, and of course, this some of the coaches might have more of an opinion on this than others, so not everyone has to answer it. But can you share any examples of how you've used coaching to measure the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and have they been able to translate then into actionable insights and steps for the organisation to continually improve? Has anyone got anything they'd want to share on that?
I think one of the ways is looking at things like if coaches are coming to you for like career progression, looking to step up as a leader as well, it's taking the time to appreciate what can the organization do, like their line managers, their sponsors, and having it as a multi-stakeholder conversation as well, right at the beginning of the assignment, coaching assignment, and then periodically midway through and at the end. And especially if they're on coaching programs that last for 6 to 8 months or 12 months, you can see the progression because there'll be markers, there'll be milestones as well. One of the key ones is about, have this person being able to find development opportunities that would allow them to be more of the leader, to exhibit the things that come back in their 360 as these are the things that you need to work on. And those are some of the markers of showing actually, yeah, there has been some inclusion here of individuals from different ethnic minority backgrounds. But also another key indicator is when people drop out of programs or drop out from an organization because they realize that's not a fit for them. I think that's also a good marker as well, a good indicator.
Great. Any additions to that?
So I worked with an organisation where they wanted to address diversity, and so we ran a focus group and people were encouraged to talk about lived experiences both within and outside of the organisation, and then that information was gathered, and it was quite a shock to the senior leaders when people were saying they don't feel that their needs are truly met within the organisation. It came as quite a shock because the senior leaders felt that they were very inclusive, and so to have that feedback, we had to kind of delve into that, really understand what were people talking about, and it was some of it were very small things. So it was things like organising events and not making sure that everyone could attend, or organising things at times when some people couldn't make them because it wasn't their working day or so on. So those individuals felt excluded from the process. So it was small things like that, making sure that people were actually asked what would they like as part of ongoing development. So having those conversations where you are asking those questions, it really made an enormous difference to how people started to feel. So sometimes you're not, I said to the leaders, nobody expects you to have all the answers, but you do need to ask the questions, because if you don't ask the questions, you'll never really know, and you might assume that you're making a difference, but not in the way that you really need to. So I think it's really very much asking the questions and get people to tell you what they need from you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, yeah. So I just like to share an example as well in my experience, which is that so we worked with an organization who had done, as you said, some focus groups to understand the challenges on their anti-racism journey specifically. And then what they did was they asked us to provide group coaching to line managers and senior leaders in order for them then to unpack the parts of it they felt were really difficult. So a little bit about understanding, but a lot around this feels hard. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to move forward on being more inclusive here. Should I be doing this? Shouldn't I? So remembering coaching doesn't have to be one-to-one. Group coaching can be highly effective and a great way to share knowledge. And then at the end, sort of measuring their confidence. So, maybe they weren't confident to have conversations about race. Maybe they weren't confident to develop their colleague from an underrepresented background, and measuring the level of confidence that they have at the end. So that can be a way to use coaching in terms of measuring as well. Yeah, great. So there's a point here made by Heather, and I wanted to bring it to your attention and just see if you had any thoughts of it. So Heather says, while it's important that people are able to express themselves as much as possible, there's a danger of expecting everyone in the professional space to get it. In fact, it's not fair to demand that everyone understands your various journeys, and it's impractical. We need to be more resilient in the workplace. So any reflections on that comment?
I suppose it's, I'd be curious about not fair to demand that everyone understands your various journeys, and what does understanding your various, so it's a great question, what's understanding your various journeys mean? What does it mean to you, and what are you asking of others? And I think that's a good question. And it could be respecting various journeys, knowing, understanding different journeys and respecting that they are different. It might be that that's what we're trying to get at. I agree, it's not about everybody agreeing that there's one way to be, one way to think, one way to believe. I absolutely agree. There isn't a one way. And I'm not sure what get it, whether that means that or something else. So it's a great question. I've got lots of questions on the question. But I think that space to hold various views, to hold different beliefs, and there are lots of opposing views right now. With what's going on in the Middle East, there are lots of opposing views, and we do need a space in organizations to be able to hold opposing views. And that's okay, and be respectful of opposing views. I agree that that's a really important space to have an organization, and it's a really tough one in organizations right now. And what I'm seeing a lot of great leaders do, it's all about holding space, not about debating what's going on, or not even debating the views, but just saying everybody's welcome with what views they have, and let's all hold each other and hold all our views. And what can we do to support you to hold your view in this organization, but also to create space for others to hold their views.
Great, thank you. Any additions? I see anyone, or has Sadia said it all?
I think very much so.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say is, where is the organization trying to go? If we say inclusion is our value, and we expect people to live that value, then I think people do need to get what inclusion means. It doesn't mean they need to understand each individual's experience, but they need to know what inclusion looks like in this organization and what it doesn't look like. And I think that it's fair to ask that people get what we mean when we say something. And if they don't get it, that means maybe there's some more work to be done in the organization so people do understand. But absolutely, I'm not going to understand everyone's individual lived experience. I haven't experienced it. I can try and empathize, but I won't understand. But I think as an organization, if you're trying to achieve an inclusive culture, I think the idea is that people do get what that really looks like, what it feels like, what it means, what the actions are around it, and that they understand that that's something that you're striving for. That even in their key performance indicators, there are items in there that speak to that it's embodied by senior leaders and those around. and that it's measured in your climate surveys, etc. So that's my take on that point, which is much appreciated. Thank you all so much. This has been a really useful conversation. It's really great to understand, I think, that executive coaching is an untapped tool in this space, that we can do so much more with it, whether that's one-to-one coaching, whether that's group coaching, whether that's using it as an evaluation tool, whether it's helping someone to empathize with someone else, whether it's creating space for resilience, whether it's supporting people from employee resource groups to lead and to support others, whether it's helping you as a leader take a new perspective, whether it's holding up a mirror to you and saying, this is what you're saying. Is this really how you want to come over? Is this really what you mean? Are you walking your talk? There are so many ways that coaching can support you. And what I love about coaching, and I, as a coach, have coaching myself, is to know it's a safe space. It's that space where I can just be, and say whatever I want to say and be whoever I want to be. And that's okay. Because I'll be accepted exactly as I am, while also helping me to be better. So if you're looking for a space like that, then I think that executive coaching is the place to look for it. And it's been so wonderful to hear from our amazing coaches, Sassy, Yvonne, and Sadia today, their wealth of insights, into inclusion, but also in that coaching process. I do encourage you to connect with them. You can see them on LinkedIn, but also they're part of the Diverse Executive Coach Directory. As I've said, it's a directory that connects corporates with coaches from global majority, or you might use the term ethnically diverse backgrounds. And I think Tanya is going to put the link in the chat. So we have another event coming up very soon. It's on the 24th of October. We will put the Eventbrite link in the chat, and it's on the power of allyship, fostering inclusion for marginalized communities. So how can allyship help? Can allyship really make a difference? That's what we'll be looking to know. And also, can you really lead if you are not an ally? Yeah, that's my challenging question to you. If you're calling yourself a leader, can you lead if you are not currently an actionable ally? So we'll be exploring that question in the next webinar, and we really hope to see you there. Our last point is that feedback informs our future webinars. We want to know if you found this one useful, but we also want to know what else you want to hear from us. What are the topics that you're not hearing people talk about that are critical for you, important for you? So do take just a couple of minutes to complete our survey on what you thought of today's webinar, but even more importantly, what you want for the future, because we want to make sure that these sessions are really useful for you. I want to say a huge thank you to Sadia, to Sassy, and to Yvonne, and of course to all of you for attending, for your comments in the chat, for your questions. And I also want to thank Tanya as well, who's been managing the chat really beautifully. I've been seeing all the comments coming through, all the links. She's even put a link into the webinar I mentioned on resilience for DEI professionals as well. So do search the chat, because there's a wealth of information there. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sadia. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Sassy. And we look forward to seeing everyone next time. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Jenny.
Bye.
Bye-bye.